Well, thanks, Chris, for that introduction. It's pretty interesting having heard the various viewpoints of sources of capital across the table, and then to hear some glimmer of hope from Ross that all those early stage companies have a place to go for money. That's certainly something consistent with some of the work that we've been doing in Cleantech. And so I just want to run through our slide deck here and give you a background of an industry report that Deloitte and Sustainable Development Technology Canada, that was referred to earlier, billion-dollar fund, very active players in the Canadian clean tech space. Deloitte and SDTC partnered up to do a clean tech report, and so this presentation is an outline of some of those report's key findings. So let's go to it. First, with a quick introduction, Dave Sparrow, sitting in the back. Dave, raise your hand. He's the leader of our Edmonton corporate finance practice and transaction services. He's been doing this for 12 years. And myself, I'm a manager in the corporate finance and valuation practice, and I spend most of my time either valuing companies or helping them with business transactions. So in the spring of 2009, Deloitte and Touche and SDTC surveyed executives and leaders of clean tech developers and users located in BC, Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. And those surveyed represent clean tech companies from small startups all the way to large public companies, and include clean tech processing and production, distributed energy production, conversion, service providers, and product providers. So we've got a full gamut of companies represented in that survey. It went out to about 150 companies across those 4 provinces. Like it was said earlier, everyone has their own clean tech definition. So our definition of clean tech is developers of products, services, or processes that provide a positive return on investment by sustainably harnessing renewable materials and energy sources, reducing the use of natural resources, or cutting and eliminating emissions and waste. And we have another definition, clean tech users, because users were a part of our survey as well, are defined as traditionally energy-intensive companies that have adopted or acquired clean tech to reduce negative environmental impact. So the intent of the report was to review the state of the clean tech industry in Western Canada. And clean tech developer respondents of the survey provided feedback. They described their current status of their product and service offerings, their position and growth expectations, and also talked about some of their challenges. So let's jump into it. So you can see the first question, one of the questions we asked, what is the current stage of development of your clean tech products or services? And so we've got 2 pie charts here. One is today, and one is a year from now. And I think that the thing to take away from this is that the vast majority, 89% to be exact, are beyond the research stage currently, those that we surveyed, and are undergoing product testing or are already in the market. And by 2010, 70% of clean tech developers expect to have revenue-generating products and services in the marketplace, which is good news for guys that want customers like Mike. So, and another interesting thing that came out of this piece was that a lot of these clean tech developers are getting ready or have already gotten ready to go to the market by seeking or already obtained intellectual property protection. Patent protection in particular was the IP protection vehicle of choice. 85% of developers have filed or plan to file a patent, and 50% of developers are using trademarks or trade secrets to protect their IP, and just 19% are using copyright protection. This is a by popularity, I guess, the top clean tech subsectors that are being focused on in Western Canada. Keep in mind this is Western Canada, but I don't think it's inconsistent with some of the comments we've heard earlier. So when asked to identify the subsector to which each company would be classified, 56% of Cleantech developers stated they focus on developing energy generation technologies. And other significant areas of focus include energy efficiency. To Sean's point, just find a way to make it cheaper. Don't reinvent something that's going to take a long time to make some money on. Air quality is another top area. Water and wastewater technologies are also significant. And you contrast this to areas that aren't getting a lot of attention. This would be things like energy storage, which is quite interesting because batteries, I know in the US, are getting a lot of attention right now. Agriculture and land management are less popular. Industrial manufacturing and advanced materials, which would be part of the nano tech, right there kind of in the middle of the pack at 10%. So we asked Cleantech developers, how much money are you making now in terms of your top line, and how much do you expect to make by 2010, and in terms of annual sales? So what we have is the light green bar representing this year, 2008, the blue bar representing what they expect to generate this year in terms of sales, and the dark green bar representing 2010 in terms of what they expect to generate for sales. And as you can see, the fluorescent kind of green bar there progresses progressively downward, and the dark green bar progressively upward, and that kind of makes sense. But I think I'll just pull out a couple of things that you can read from this. 78% of Cleantech developers in Western Canada who responded to the survey are relatively small. They generate less than 2 million of sales per annum, and within that less than 2 million, 40% of respondents are generating less than 100,000. So these are very, very early small companies. But these figures are expected to climb dramatically as Cleantech products and services become more economically viable, such that the majority, 54% of developers, are projecting to be generating at least 2 million in sales by 2010. And nearly 1/3 of those respondents are projecting to generate sales in excess of 10 million starting 2010. So who are Cleantech companies selling to? Well, the majority of Cleantech developers in Western Canada are focused on serving the oil sands, conventional oil and gas, mining and related energy services markets, and this makes sense. This is also reflected by the procurement activities of the large utility companies in Western Canada, and some of them are respondents to our survey, such as BC Hydro, TransAlta, and EPCOR. To a lesser extent, other primary customer segments include consumer business, forestry, agriculture, and the public sector. Customer segments that are less common areas of focus for Cleantech include financial services, areas in the technology, media, and telecommunications space, manufacturing and transportation sectors. And so when we thought about this, we said there's a whole lot of opportunity in some of these other sectors that aren't getting any attention from Cleantech companies. You know, that could present kind of a first mover advantage in those sectors. However, you know, it could also just be saying that there's a lack of potential to apply those technologies in those sectors, or maybe the expertise within those sectors are not in Western Canada.